Okay, I'm working on my 2004 Pontiac Grand Prix here, and this is the G2 model. I'm going to be replacing the wheel bearing here on the front today. Now sometimes you have wheel bearings go out and there's some question as to if it's a wheel bearing and it's making a little bit of noise and everything. This one, there's absolutely no question about it. It's making a terrible racket here on this passenger side, and there's just no mistaking it whatsoever. Said really noisy. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. I've got the wheel chock back there, so we're going to go ahead and get it jacked up and get us a jack stand here. Okay, so I'm just positioned on this frame with a wooden block and my jack. I actually had to move my wheel chocks to the other side. I didn't plan on the car lifting up so much, and it got me just a jack stand right under here on the frame to support that. So as always, if you're not using an impact, you'll want to break your lugs loose before you lift it up, and by the same token you'll want to break this axle nut loose as well for what we're going to be doing. To be on the safe side though, so you're not damaging this, you want to take your wheel off and knock it out from the back side. You can remove it, but it's difficult and you may booger it up a little bit. So we're just going to go ahead and get the wheel off. Going to be using a 19mm. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and take this big axle nut here loose while we're here at it. It's going to be a 33mm, and we should be able to get it loose here. Okay, so you may have a couple of these little locking tabs here, and if they're still on yours, you just give them a little turn with some pliers and get them loose, and then you just can twist these right off of here by hand and just put them aside in case you want to reuse them. It really just holds the rotor straight. Sometimes I just throw them away. Good time to check your brakes and stuff while you're in here, and you can see that this one is just horrible. It's down onto the tab right there. You can see it's been squilling and rubbing for some time, and so those are going to need to be replaced as well. But what I'm going to do now is go ahead and turn this wheel so we can get access to the rear of this caliper here. We got a couple bolts, so I'm going to turn the wheel to the right so we can get to those now. Okay, so we got it turned, and we're going to be kind of turning this thing back and forth a lot because we're going to need it to be able to get in here with our impact and stuff. So we're going to go ahead and get this bolt right here. That's a 15mm. That holds this whole entire brake caliper, the bracket and everything. So that's the top bolt. We've got one right down here as well. And we're also going to want to go ahead before we take those out and get us some wire, so we can wire this thing way up here where it's going to be out of our way when we're working on this, but it's supporting our line. So let's go ahead and get us some wire, get up here, and as soon as we take it off we can just get it wired up. So just a couple of 15s, and I'm just going to use my impact and get those out. Okay, so we got those loose on this top one. I used a little short extension because my impact was hitting against this, so I needed a little short extension. So we got those bolts loose. It's just kind of sitting there. We'll go ahead and get this bottom one. And then we've got our wire ready. We're just going to wire it just somewhere here. Really doesn't matter. We'll probably just come through maybe this side over here and just run our wire through. Okay, so that's up out of the way. We're going to go ahead and turn our wheel back to the left so we can gain access to these right here. Oh, and by the way, we can go ahead and remove this caliper or this rotor here. We don't need it now that we got that caliper off. So we're going to go ahead and get on these. I believe we got 21 millimeters. I'll check here just to make sure. Okay, so yeah, these are 21 millimeters, and we're just going to take this nut off of this side here. Okay, and these bolts here have these splines, and you do in fact have to knock these out. And I just used this hammer. You kind of got to get rough with them, but they got these ends on them that you can actually hit. And you can see how it kind of mushroomed out a little bit, but you got to hit it. The rubber mallet was not cutting it. You can see those teeth, and those go in and they dig in from this side. So you got to knock those out of there. So now we've got this here loose, or strut loose from the knuckle. So we can go ahead and start working this CV. We should just be able to tap it lightly with a rubber mallet and knock it back. We're going to go ahead and unclip our ABS while we're at it. It's just got a little clip right there. You just pull that way. And then this here, you squeeze with a pair of needle nose or something. And I might be able to get it with my finger here, but you just squeeze those in and this pushes that right through. Okay, so here we go. Let's try it with some needle nose. So basically, the kit will come, and there we go. It just popped right out. You go ahead and just get that while you're at it. And so we're just going to tap this, but we're going to need to straighten the wheel back up. We want it straight, and it's going to make it getting the CV out a little bit easier. I just straighten my wheel up a little bit. I'm just taking my rubber mallet and just tapping it out of this strut. And it'll just pop down. So we got that completely loose from that. And we're just going to take and hit this. Now sometimes these can stick, and in that case you'll have to spray it with some lubricant and find a means of pushing that back through. And sometimes they seize up if you got a lot of rust and you can't get them out. And that's the importance of greasing these well when you put them back together. Okay, so with this pulled down out of here, ready to go ahead and start pushing this CV axle back. And one thing you don't want to make a mistake of is just yanking on this part and pulling or popping your CV axle out. You can mess it up and may have to take it apart and fix it or get another one. So you want to be careful and don't just go to yanking on this. You want to push this out by itself. So we just about got it out here, and we're going to go ahead and just slip it to the side. I've got the wheel straightened up right now. Okay, and we're just going to take something else and just strap this up out of the way, just so we're not hitting it for now. So we're just going to get a strap and hold this up. Okay, so we just got this knuckle turned here, and we're just going to get access to these 3 13mm that are back here. And we can just easily get in here with our impact at this point and slip these off. Alright, so this is completely loose, so I'm going to go ahead and get a hand on it. It's fixing to fall here. And just make a mark while you're at this as to where exactly this wire here goes. So you make sure that you orient that back in the same spot there. Okay, and there it is off of the vehicle. And this one, when spinning it, didn't sound just horribly bad spinning it by hand, and it didn't have any slack, but going down the road sounded just horrible. And like I said, there was no mistaking where the noise was coming from. So we're going to go ahead and get our new bearing here. We're just going to take and wipe this out a little bit, clean this up. Okay, so here's our new bearing here, and you'll notice that the clip on this original is a little bit different from the one that's on here right now. And they send one like this because there's different ones for different models. So we're going to actually take this one off, and you can see there's just some little tabs here on the side. We're just going to take some pliers and bend those back on each side, and then we're going to pull that off. So we're going to go ahead and do that so we can put this on here. So anyways, we're going to get some pliers and do that. Okay, so like I said, just bent those tabs up and took that one off. Just be careful, don't damage this part in here. And then this little plastic one, it just slides into these grooves here. I don't know if I can do this one-handed, but it just slides in there, and then it clips right up on that little nub, just like that. And that's all there is. So it'll just clip in just like the old one there. So anyways, we're going to go ahead and get this over here and start putting it on. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do before we put this on, we're going to make sure we get our bracket, and it's just going to go on here just like so, with the little tab to hold our ABS, and then that part down on the bottom just like that. And then we're going to go ahead and position our bearing, and remember we're going to put the ABS connector where we put our mark so we get it back into the same location here. Okay, so there we have, it's our bracket positioned back over there. And then we have our wire position right here where we got our mark, and just so we can reclip it, and it's just going to go back. Got the little clip, it's just going to go right back in there, and you can go ahead and push that in there if you like. But anyways, just got a bolt holding it here. I'm going to be putting some high strength Loctite on these, and we're going to be torquing these to 96 foot-pounds. So we'll go ahead and get our Loctite on here. Our bearing's just sitting there for now. Okay, so here I've put a good amount of this high strength Loctite, and I've got the other bolts into place here, and we're just going to go ahead and get these torqued down now. I said 96 foot-pounds. Okay, so we just torquing these one at a time here. Just give it a couple clicks. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and connect our ABS here so we don't forget that. And I was having trouble getting that connector, that new one, in, so I had to actually squeeze it with my needle nose to get it to go. It was just really snug. So the wheel bearings is torqued. It feels good. We're going to go ahead and get our CV axle. Put you some grease. Don't be afraid to put grease on this. Put it in here. It's going to prevent rust and prevent future problems if you have to get the CV axle back out. It'll prevent it from seizing up. So we're going to grease this good, and then we're going to slip it back down into here. That's going to be our next step. Okay, so I've done nothing special. I just kind of pushed this knuckle down a little bit and just pulled the CV axle, kind of pushed back on it slightly so I can work it in here. And now with that in, we can go ahead and get our axle nut back on the front here, and then start slipping it back into the strut here. And here we got our bolts with the splines we're going to put on here. So let's go ahead and push the CV in here. Let's work it in here, and we're going to get our axle nut back on the front. Okay, so we're just going to get this on here, and we're not going to tighten it very much for now until we get the everything out from under it and it's set on the wheel, and then we're going to do the final torque. And let me just show you this while we're at it. You got this centerpiece. You just tap this thing from the back side and it'll come right out. You can just almost push them out sometimes from the back, but there we go. So go ahead and take that out before that you put your tire on. We're just going to go ahead and take a ratchet and just snug it down where it's on there, but we're not going to be torquing it or anything. And we're just going to do this first. Okay, now all I've done is just pushed this up into place. You can see it's not really lined up real well. You just have to kind of wiggle it and push it around where you need it. And you'll notice the bolts have that smaller end, and that's to help you get it started. So you get it started, lined up as best you can, and then we'll take that rubber mallet and just tap it all the way down. Now we're not going to tap it through. The nut on the other side will pull these splines back into place. We're just going to tap it to help get us started. So like I said, I've just got it semi lined up, and you have to wiggle this thing around and stuff to get it, and push the strut to get it to line up where you need it a little bit. Okay, and so there we have those started. We're going to put some Loctite on these as well. I believe these are locking nuts, so it's really not necessary. So we're just going to go ahead and just put these on, and like I said, when we tighten it from this side, and I'll use my impact, that'll pull that on down. Okay, so we just turn the tire back to the left so we can get access to these, and we're just getting ready to tighten them down. When I looked them up, these called for 89 foot-pounds for the strut, and but I'm just going to go ahead and use the impact to pull these both down, and then we will go ahead and torque it. Okay, so we've just rotated the wheel back to the right. We're getting ready to set this rotor back on here, and then once we get this on, we'll work on getting our caliper here back into place. And we've got these little washer things that go on here. We'll go ahead and just turn those back down by hand. Like I said, it just kind of holds that rotor on there straight. Yeah, I've just set this in place. We're going to be using this Loctite on these bolts as well. Just got it sitting here. We're going to come to the back, put that one in there, and then that one in there, and we'll just kind of wiggle this thing around, this bracket, in order to get them started. Okay, and there we got our Loctite, and we're just working it in place here. So you got to kind of wiggle this thing and push it around to get them lined up. Okay, and these call for 129 foot-pounds. So make sure you click it a couple times on each one. Okay, so now we've just straightened our wheel back out, and we're going to go ahead and get this back on here and get our lug nuts, and then we're going to be lowering the car down off of the jack stands and everything here. Okay, so we just have the car lowered down onto the ground, and we're going to be tightening this axle nut to 118 foot-pounds. It's important that you tighten it to the exact specification, because you can actually mess the wheel bearing up. So we've got it set to 118, and we're just going to double click it and make sure. Now we're just going to go ahead and get our center cap, so it'll just push right in, and we're going to go ahead and just tighten these to 100 foot-pounds real quick. Okay, so with that, that's going to conclude this video. As always, if you found it helpful, give the video a like, and I invite you to subscribe, and I thank you for watching.